This is Craig and Andrew, two Ranger qualified Army officers with MBAs, here to help you improve your business through leadership.
Each week, we'll deliver easy lessons from the battlefield to the boardroom on how to improve team performance. If you're a leader or want to be, this is the place for you.
Welcome to the cohort.
Disclaimer: the views in this podcast are those of the authors alone and do not represent the views of the Department of Defense or the U.S. Army.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome back.
Hey, everybody.
Today, I think we're going to follow up a little bit on what we talked about last time about being in charge. And Andrew's got a good example he's going to take us through.
Yeah, so we talked about, when in charge, take charge, and kind of the idea behind that last week. So to put this in the context of a story, of a good example, I've got a story about a time when I was responsible for standing up a brand new unit within the Army. So at the time, the Chief of Staff of the Army, right, some of the highest levels of the Army, decided they were going to stand up this. There was a need for this new type of unit. It's about 500 or 600 people, and the Army said we were going to have 5 of them in the active duty, and then they picked out the different bases where they were going to go, and it just so happens the 5th one, in order of stand-up, was going to be assigned to the base where I was. So what happened is the highest levels of the Army, they turned to my base and said, hey, you guys are going to be responsible for standing up this new unit. And so I said, okay. And so the people, the highest levels of this base turned to the unit that I was in and said, okay, hey, you guys are going to be responsible for standing up this unit on this base. And they said, okay. So that was my bosses that said that. And then my bosses turned to me and said, hey, you're going to be responsible for standing up this unit. I said, oh, okay. And then that was it, right? That was the end of the guidance, basically. Now, an Army base is it's like a small city, to be clear, right? To be fair to everyone that helped me do this. There were people that managed the real estate. There's people that managed the infrastructure, the water, the fire department. I mean, everything that comes in a city is in a small Army base. So I had all that kind of support structure already in place, but it was people that I didn't know, I hadn't worked with before, and didn't know me, right?
Yeah.
So I got assigned this task, right, with very little guidance. Said, hey, stand up this new unit. That's a priority of the highest levels of the Army. Go. Okay. So when in charge, take charge, right? So that means I was responsible for everything for this unit. Now, in the Army, when a unit or when somebody's assigned to a unit, when they live on the base, they have to be provided everything, just like they do in a city, right? So they have to have a place where they're going to eat identified. So their dining facility, they will be assigned to a dining facility, which means that dining facility has to have more workers and more food, of course, incoming. They have to have, of course, office buildings and office space. They have to have a motor pool where they're going to work on their vehicles. They have to have, a room where they keep an arms room, where they keep all their equipment, and where they're going to get health care, right? What clinic are they going to be assigned to? So there's all of these, like, what about the printers and their cell phones? Like, all these things are provided to them by the Army when they get assigned to a unit. So that was something that I was going to be responsible for managing, right? And I kind of knew all this had to be there for them, right? And I was able to talk with some other people and kind of figure out a plan to kind of get it all sorted out. So I started, making a list of all these things that they needed, right? So then I had to start tracking down all the people on the base that would be responsible for these things. So, well, they, first, one of the first things they need is probably, their office spaces. So, okay, well, I got to go talk to the people on space that run facilities. So I tracked down their number and I made some phone calls and I had to figure out who was going to be the lead, right? And because this was such a high priority topic, like they kind of knew it was coming, or it was in the
Yeah.
news that this unit was going to be assigned to my base, so they knew it was
But
coming.
yeah, they were expecting your phone call basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I got the facilities people on board, and I started collecting all of these different owners of all of these different uh, responsibilities, right? And I had to collect them all into one where we could all get together and talk about and kind of lay out the plan to get this organization ready to go. So that's kind of the start of taking charge of it all, right? So hey, you've got the task now. Go forth. Okay, well,
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for the all of the buildings on this installation,
Mhm.
but I now know who is, and I've got them together sitting next to the people that are responsible for the healthcare, sitting next to the people that are responsible for the dining facility.
Right.
So now I've got them started getting them all into a room, right, to develop, to lay out kind of the plan and the milestones over the next 18 months to get this unit stood up.
Yeah,
So
it
I can,
sounds like at the time you had to look at that task you were given, prioritize
mm,
what needs to take place in order, and then facilitate getting all those other stakeholders involved. And I think it's important to point out that, like you stated, you had support from these other organizations, from these other teams, but it eventually came down to you had to make that phone call to get them in the room together. And
mm,
so to facilitate this, to be in charge, you had to take action as a leader. And essentially what it sounds like to me is you were building a team of teams
yeah,
that normally did not work together on a regular basis. And but you had to take that action to get them all into that room together. That wasn't going to happen otherwise.
yeah, yeah. There had to be an organizing guidepost, right,
Mm-hmm.
to get all of these other agencies together and working together on the same page to understand all the information, to put out all the information, right? Communicate, when the people were arriving, what all they needed, discuss with these other agencies what they could provide, what they couldn't provide, what they needed in order to provide the standard that we required, all those types of things. Um, and so, yeah, I had to be, even though it wasn't necessarily within my job description, right?
Yeah.
In my duty title, it was nowhere stand up a new organization. That's not a task that it was in my duty description. But I understand that I'm also a leader in the United States Army, and ultimately, I need to be able to do what they tell me to do. And
Yeah.
if I'm going to provide value to this organization, then I was put in charge. I
Mm-hmm.
I can't say I'm sorry, I can't do that task, right?
Yeah. Well, think back. I mean, uh, it's funny you mentioned the task outside of your general duty description.
Mm.
I think that throughout the time in the military, that's one of the things that creates or forces adaptive leaders
Yeah,
and you to be able to change and be agile and think through ways of something that's outside your traditional skill set, because the the number of things I did that had nothing to do with being an infantry officer, there's a pretty long list, and it sounds like I'm guessing you have a very similar experience of.
yeah,
I think that it goes back to the culture inside the army of, hey, you're a leader and
mm.
your real skill set is being a leader, and we don't care so much as what you are technically trained in. We
Yeah,
understand that you have these principles of leadership that you understand, and I can put you in a unknown environment, because this was probably the first time you ever had to try to stand up a new unit for the Army.
Yep. Yep.
And however, I mean, there were senior officers that were confident, like, well, we're just going to give this to you.
Mm.
You figure it out. They knew. It's not like you went with your resume and said, hey, look at all the times I've stood up new units.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't have that experience, but you had leadership experience, and they trusted that leadership experience for you to be able to translate that into these type actions.
Yeah, that's a great point, Greg. I hadn't really thought about that before, but ultimately, right, this was a leadership problem, right,
Mm-hmm.
or leadership solution,
Yeah.
right? Because I don't think that is a duty title in the Army. Unit stand upper, right? Like that's not.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it comes down to leadership, and like because this was high priority, like I had to answer to some of the highest level general officers on the base, right,
Mm-hmm.
and my boss's boss, which was a general officer. And so they would come and ask me questions. I had to routine briefings with them. Um, so it was still it has they yeah, we are trained to be leaders,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think you're right. That's the way it went. They found a leader. You're responsible.
Yeah.
So there we went. Um, so the way this unit was stood up, uh, you know, the chief of staff of the army made the decision. That doesn't mean people magically appear, right? There was a training pipeline that took, and we were the fifth in the order of stand up. So the trickle began. It started trickling into the first one, right? So
Yeah.
we didn't get people for a long time, right? Which is kind of okay because we were still working out the big rock items, right? Where they would, sleep and eat and get health care, and where their
Mm-hmm.
trucks would park, where they were getting trucks,
Yeah.
right? The status of those trucks, the maintainers for those. Well, so I say all that to say, like, even the people that belonged in this unit that were assigned to this unit weren't even there yet, right? So then they finally did kind of start showing up, right, as the pipeline started filling up. Um, and there's a few people that the initial people that came on board to help kind of make the decisions for the unit, right? Um, with that presented new problems because now they need computers, now they need printers, now they need cell phones, right? and
Yeah.
and the base and the army had provided no such things to this point at this stage, right? So this is all of a sudden a new problem I have to figure out, right? I wasn't going to go to my boss's boss and the general officers on the base and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's a big problem. They have no computers," right?
Yeah.
Because when in charge, take charge, right? Don't just come with a problem. Come with a problem and a solution,
Yeah.
right? So I had to go to my boss's boss and say, "Hey, so things are going well. They're starting to show up. And now that they're showing up, we've developed some new problems in that they have no way to communicate, right? They have no way to actually get work done. So I've talked with the computer people here in our unit, and they have a few that they can loan out to them until such time as their computers start arriving and their printers and all that. Um, so when I did that, then my boss's boss was like, "Okay, great, move out." So that at once
Yeah.
the problem arrived and was solved, right? But now I need to go and say, hey, you're going to give those computers to the new guys.
Yeah.
Uh, and again, everybody, because I was chosen as the person to do this, I had some authority behind it because ultimately I could always go back and say, okay, if you don't want to do what I'm asking you to do, then you can go talk to our general officer. And
Yeah.
usually that stopped any arguments. But point is, right, I was still the person having to go and do those things, right? It
Yeah.
was still all on me. I was just trusted with the authority to kind of ask for help, to put it nicely. So I started getting automation and things like that. And so this is actually a big problem. Now they needed furniture, right? So we had a building. They had a building. There's a building at the time that was empty uh, because another unit had moved out or something. But they had no furniture. Now
Need a place to put those computers.
you need a table to put them on, a chair to sit in, and so this became a really big problem because now we have to contract out building new furniture, and the army giving me a bunch of money. Well, getting the money was a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
That took a while because I mean, everybody in the army knew this was coming, but you still had to work out just handing money isn't that easy, right? Everybody
Right.
knows like there's a process. You have to.
Yeah.
Everybody's holders of this money. I never touched the money, of course, but the people that work the money did. It has to be assigned to certain codes, right, and all that. Well, so then we had a contract with a furniture company, and we had to design all the furniture, all the office furniture for all these different places, for all these offices, right? Which is taking. I have never learned how to design office furniture.
Right.
Yeah, that was not in my training pipeline to this point. But now I had an
Yeah.
opportunity.
No interior design classes, huh?
Yeah, yeah, no, no. Make sure that you get the cubicles that are electrical adaptive, so you can set up
Oh.
the cubicle and just plug it in. That way, you have electric socket right there instead of like a hole in the floor you got to go find underneath your desk or like just so you know if
Yeah.
anybody's met with this task in the future. So like and the layout of all the buildings, right? All the different rooms and how the furniture was going to go in each one, and the specific type of cubicles and all that, and the timelines. And you have to present the design, and then they have to come back with feedback. And you have to like confirm the design, and then they have to
Yeah.
come in and they have to build it, which is like a six
Yeah.
month lead time, and then they have to come in and install it. And if you move it, you void the warranty.
Oh wow.
So it was a whole big deal, right? And like because of that, my boss said to me, he's like, "Hey, make sure that the leaders of this new unit approve the furniture plan because once you move it, warranty's
Yeah.
void." I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, all right." So that was another big problem because then I had to go to of these 5 units, right? There was a headquarters over all 5 of them. So I could go to that headquarters in the absence of people from this new unit to kind of make decisions on their behalf.
Right.
Um, so I was able to go to them, who was all they were also just being stood up, so there wasn't a lot of people there either, and had to get the furniture plans approved by them, which added time. All the while, these people are sitting on the floor working on their computers,
Yeah.
so that became a problem.
Yeah.
Uh, and it became a problem at like the worst time too, because that's about when the leader of this unit showed up,
Mm.
and he was he wanted some furniture for his people, right? Of course, like
Yeah.
yeah, you don't want people sitting on the floor in there. So I had to go around to like every single unit on the base, and this is a joint base, so I had to go to the Air Force side too, and like beg, borrow, and steal furniture. And I had to get I was in a sustainment unit, so I had a company that had trucks and truck drivers, stuff like that. So I had to
Yeah.
go to them and get some trucks and get some truck drivers. Hey, we're gonna go find furniture. Come on, guys, it's gonna be great fun. So like, we drove over to the Air Force and stole some furniture. We didn't steal any, but
Yeah.
and bring that
Acquired
over.
some surplus property.
Yeah, yeah. So so we're loading this furniture in the back of the truck to drive it back over to the army side to put. It was like all this. I'd like take it apart, right, and like I had a
Yeah.
drill and make videos, how-to videos, how to reassemble this stuff, right, and send it to the people that were reassembling on the other end. Like none of this I'd ever done before,
Yeah.
right? But whose responsibility was it? It was mine, right?
Yeah.
Overall, my responsibility. So I had to work all this stuff out. It was a lot of discovery learning.
Yeah.
right? But the alternative was to go to my boss's boss and say, "Hey, they have no furniture. Uh, I don't know how to disassemble furniture." Right? Like that's not gonna solve the problem,
Right.
right? They didn't hire a furniture builder; they hired a leader,
Yeah.
and by hired I mean told me to do it,
And
right?
I think so many times as leaders, it really comes down to, to put it, you know, briefly, it's figure it out. Just go
Figure
figure
it
it
out.
out.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like an oversimplification, but really, as I sit here and listen to you explain all of these tasks that you were never trained for,
Mm,
that you were never inside of your job description, it was the actions as a leader that allowed you to do all this. You went out there and said, "Hey, we're going to figure it out." And I think that action is sometimes more valuable than, you weren't an interior designer. You weren't, furniture procurement was not your specialty.
no.
However, you had been trusted to make this new unit stand up happen.
Mm,
And so by simply taking charge and going out there and figuring it out, and I think that sometimes leaders are hesitant to do that because you're operating outside your comfort zone.
yeah. Yeah.
You're having to get out there and do stuff that you don't normally do. But if your leadership has trusted you with this, like,
Mm,
you had general officers that were like, "Oh, he's out there working on it." Like they knew that you were developing these solutions. They probably knew that there's going to be some hiccups, there's going to be
yeah.
some friction points, and they're okay with that because it's better to send a leader out there to take action as opposed to, well, now we've got to make a list of all the specialty people we're going to try to hire for this. Like, no, we don't
Yeah.
need that. Just send a good leader over there and they'll figure it out.
Yeah. So, so that's a great point about trust there, Craig. So because this furniture was taking so long, and again, we assembled these little bits and pieces of different furniture that were rickety, like these. You know, we're trying to type while everything was shaking around. Right, it wasn't quite that bad, but so I was still in contract negotiations with the company that was going to build the furniture, right? And so it finally got all approved, and it came down to the final steps. We had an installation date picked out, right? And like the pressure was building to get this furniture in place. So I knew that I was the leader, right? And I felt comfortable being the leader, and I felt comfortable with the trust they had in me. And I knew that the pressure was building to get this furniture in place, right?
Mhm.
And it came to a point in the process where it's like, okay, if you get this approval on this final set, we can start building. Now, the paper process should have been I take that back. I get it signed off, approved by leaders higher than me, right? That would have added another like 2 or 3 weeks
Mhm.
to this thing. And I mean, it was really just an approval, like just a nod up and down is all it
Mhm.
was. But because of all these things I already knew in place and because I knew the intent, I went ahead and approved it, right? So
Yeah.
there was risk in that, right?
Absolutely.
That I could have been wrong,
Yeah.
but I also had trust in my own abilities. I
Mhm.
believed that they entrusted me with finding a proper solution and getting things done in a timely manner. If I had come back and said, "Now we this is the safe route," and it would have been okay, right?
Mhm.
That I could easily defend coming back to them and saying, "Hey, I need you to prove this now."
Mhm.
But I also knew that perhaps getting it done faster would have been appropriate as well. So I
Yeah.
assumed a little bit of risk and
Mhm.
said, "Hey, yes, approved. Let's move forward, move to the next step." And so we the furniture continued to progress, and I was telling the leader of this unit later because he asked about furniture.
Mhm.
And so I told him, I was like, "Hey, we just hit this step today or this week or whatever it was." Uh, and we actually skipped a step in the process to get it moving on a little faster. He was like, "Okay, what's the cost of that skipped step?" if you step the wrong direction. Like a little bit of extra money, I think was the catch of it all. He's like, oh, okay, and they moved on, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there was a little bit of risk I had to assume there to get all it all done, right? But I understood the risk. They had the trust in me. I had the trust in myself, and I knew the intent, right?
Yeah.
So it all continued to progress, and ultimately, like you know, within 18 months, they had they were a functioning unit
Yeah.
from absolutely zero
Yeah.
to a functioning unit in 18 months. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I had to
That's
figure
that's
out all these little
definitely
bits.
that's quite the undertaking because that is, um, I was sitting here trying to think of, in business terms, what would that look like? And it's, trying to create a new unit in the Army of 500-600 people with
Mm,
vehicles and buildings and all that. The closest thing I can kind of come up with here is, if I have a automotive company that produces sports cars in Georgia and I want to start building pickup trucks in Texas. And basically, I found that there's a building over there I can buy. And so I buy this building, and then I just send one of my production line supervisors to Texas and tell him good luck.
yeah,
And hey,
yeah,
you figure this out. We need this new product in this new facility, and I need you to just figure it out. We'll send you some people, we'll send you some money,
yeah, yeah.
but otherwise, you've got to talk with all the suppliers, talk with the vendors, and get all these things prioritized, organized, coming in the right timelines. And um, because, like you're right, I mean, it's a small city on a base,
Mm,
but there are so many moving parts to having a unit like that stand up. And it takes that action from a leader who's willing to not throw up their hands and say, well, I was never trained for this, or this is not my job.
mm,
Because it's real easy as a leader to want to push back and say, well, that's not my job. But when you look at good leaders, they're always out there just finding the solutions. Like, it doesn't matter what the problem is, you find the solution for it
yeah,
and continue to press forward.
yeah. That's probably a great example, right? Because if you think about all the different things that would be required to stand up a new production facility for a slightly different product line, it's going to be pretty similar, right? Well, we build tires, but there's going to be different tires. So, okay,
Right.
where am I going to put the machinery to make this tire? And like, where do I get new suppliers? It can be the same suppliers. Can they deliver to Texas? I,
Yeah.
I, you, I may not be, you may not be, the tire contractor guy, but you can talk to and wrangle in the person that is,
Yeah.
right? And get them on the same page.
Yeah. Make those phone calls or office visits, whatever you got to do to find
Mm-hmm.
those solutions. We had, when I was in the Army, I had a first sergeant who called in all the platoon sergeants from the different platoons one day. And one of the squad leaders from one of the platoons came to the meeting. He said, what are you doing here? And he said, well, I'm the acting platoon sergeant. And what he meant by that was platoon sergeant was gone doing something else. And so he was there in his stead to represent. And then the first sergeant looked at him and asked, he said, are you the acting platoon sergeant or are you the platoon sergeant? And you could see
Mm-hmm.
the kind of look of question there on his face.
Mm-hmm.
And he had that same moment of when in charge, be in charge. He looked at him and said, are you going to be the platoon sergeant? Or are you just going to act like you are? He said, don't give me that acting. He said, do
Good.
it.
Oh, that's so
He
good.
said, when I ask you that question, just tell me you're the platoon sergeant. That's all I need to hear.
That's
And
so
I thought it
good.
was, yeah, I thought it was interesting in that small frame of reference.
Mm-hmm.
Are you acting or are you actually doing it? And I think it's important for leaders to step up like you did in that role of something that, you know, not necessarily trained and prepared for, but just go out there and find those solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's such a good example. So to provide a counter example, uh, and what it looked like if, a leader doesn't take charge. In this new unit of, 500-600 people, right? There was battalions right within it. They were smaller size battalions because of the nature of this unit. But anyway, one of the battalion commanders showed up. He was the first, so he actually outranked me at the time. Um, and he was like going to be one of the top 5-6 leaders in this organization, and he was the first of that level to show up. And I was so excited. I was like, oh, thank God we have a decision maker here. We
Yeah.
have somebody this can advocate for this unit because it's going to be their unit. I was like, oh, thank
Yeah.
God, thank God. Hello, yes, hi, great. I've been working on this for it was 8 months, 10 months,
Yeah.
or whatever it was at the time. Here's some of this thing. Here's what all I've got working and all this other stuff. And I'll never forget it. He looked at me and said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! That's brigade level stuff. I'm a battalion commander. That's not. I don't do that. I don't do that stuff. That's brigade stuff. I'm just a battalion commander." So, the brigade is the top line of the unit, right? And he was a battalion commander, a subunit of the brigade. And I was just like, "Oh my God!" You are the highest ranking person in this organization right now. And there's only like 10 of you, so it's not going to be that hard right now.
Yeah.
And he refused to take responsibility, refused to take charge because it wasn't his battalion.
Yeah.
Well, hey, buddy, it's not my brigade.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm still doing it, right?
Right. Yeah.
So by him doing that, saying that, like it put the stress and all the work and all the problems, right, back onto somebody else, right? And that's what happens, if you're assigned a task or if you see a task that needs doing and you're a leader and you don't take charge, like that's the cost of it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's a good example of two ends of that spectrum. Somebody stepping up and taking charge.
Yeah.
And then someone who's just saying, "Hey, that's not my role. I'm not going to get involved with that." So, I'm glad you're able to find all those solutions and get your furniture put together.
Thanks.
So that the Army could continue its mission.
I mean, to be clear, I didn't do all of it, right? There's a lot of people that helped me out. I just kind of had to wrangle them all and get them on a plan.
Yeah, I don't think any leader is successful without a good team of people around them. And sometimes that's your own internal organization. And sometimes you got to go outside and build that team while you're solving those problems.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of a very real example, a very big example of when in charge, take charge, right?
Yeah.
So I hope that helps kind of illustrate what I was talking about in part one, and that if you're the leader, if you're picked to be in charge, like there's going to be a problem. There's going to be like leadership and change are almost synonymous, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So there's going to be problems when you change things, initially. And you got to solve those problems. You can't just be defeated. You can't just come with problems to your boss. You have to come with problems and solutions, right? Because you're in charge. So take charge.
All right. Well, appreciate you sharing that. And we hope that this was value for everybody. And we will see y'all next time.
All right. Bye, everybody. As always, take these lessons, use them, and spread them. Everyone is welcome in the cohort.
Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe for more. And drop us a line at commandpostcohort.com to request a specific topic.
We'll see you next time on the cohort.